Erdogan is taking Turkey, or like you said formerly, Turkey, down in more of an authoritarian regime than democracy at this point, with the arrest of this Istanbul mayor, who was going to be his probably biggest opponent in the upcoming presidential elections. So before I move on, I want to briefly discuss this crackdown, but let's say welcome back to Peace Through Strength, brought to you by the American Security Council Foundation. I'm your host, Joy Votrobek, and back with me is our senior analyst, Lawrence Sanford. Welcome back, Larry.
Glad to be back.
So, Larry, let's discuss this opposition party presidential candidate that was arrested. And the crackdown, I understand, is also happening with people that supported him on social media.
Yes, Erdogan is an autocrat, and he's increasing his control over Turkey, now known as Turkey. He formerly was mayor of Istanbul, and he has, since 20 years, has increased his strength, and he's basically wants to rebuild the Ottoman Empire, where Turkey was the controlling influence in the Near East, Middle East, and Northern Africa, Muslim countries. And he is doing a great job of becoming an autocrat. He has jailed more journalists than almost any country in the world. He's jailed his opponents. The Kurds are an ethnic group in Turkey bordering Syria and Iraq. And they've always wanted more autonomy, and there's been a 20 or 30-year war going on between the two of them. He jailed the leader and continues the fight. But it looks like the fight is starting to end, because the Kurds in Syria have signed a deal with the central government, which is HTS, funded by and supported by Turkey in the overthrow of Assad in Syria.
And I was really kind of surprised that the Kurdish leader and the Kurds really laid down weapons so quickly.
I'm amazed too, Joy. I haven't quite figured that one out either. So, but it seems to everything's going as well. Syria is a perfect example. The HTS, which now controls a significant part of Syria, was funded and supported by Turkey. They had an enclave up in Syria near the Turkish border, or on the Turkish border. And Turkey supported them, and now they've taken over Syria. So Turkey has a big influence on Syria. And right now, Syrian leadership seems to be doing a pretty smart job of wooing the Europeans. They just sent them $2 or $3 billion or euro dollars to prop them up. They've signed a deal with the Kurds. They've signed a deal with the Druze. But they're out there slaughtering Christians and Alawites up there on the coast of Latvia, a city called Latvia.
Yes, yes, I know
where there's a Russian Navy base. And they're slaughtering the Alawites because Assad, the former ruler, was an Alawite.
Right.
And he peppered the government with all sorts of Alawite people. So the revenge has taken place, and Christians happen to be living in the area. So anybody who's not a Sunni Muslim is being slaughtered, and thousands of people are being slaughtered.
Yes, as we discussed previous, that we believed that this was probably a wolf in sheep's clothing, trying to convince the world that he was different, but his former attachments to ISIS and Al-Qaeda, I think, are coming out.
So far, the Trump administration, to my knowledge, has not sent him any money. So I think they're taking a wait-and-see policy as to see how he's doing.
And obviously, Israel's putting up defenses to make sure they don't come into their territory.
Yeah. Good point. Syria is nibbled away at the Syrian border and putting outposts on, added a little bit to the Golan Heights, and has indicated the Druze, D-R-U-Z-E, are an ethnic group in southern Syria, but they're also in Israel, significant number of them in Israel, and they're pretty well integrated into the Israeli society. So the Israelis have said to the Druze, we'll protect you from the Sunni Muslims of HTS. And they said, thanks, but no thanks, we're going to sign a deal. So they signed a deal. We'll see how the deal is lived by. I would say as soon as HTS consolidates control in Syria, we'll see more purging of ethnic minorities.
I believe so too. And now that they've made this deal with the Kurds as well.
Yes.
They're starting to consolidate power.
Yeah, so we'll see how it goes. But Erdogan is definitely on the road to being a full-blown autocrat. And I'm not saying we should do anything overtly, but there's plenty of stuff we should do to raise the temperature on his rule. And one of the things I think we could do is start thinking about and maybe implementing policy of getting Turkey out of NATO, since they no longer fit into the objectives and ideals of NATO. They should be kicked out of NATO, and the U.S. should close its 2 military bases in Turkey.
Yes, and you and I have talked about this before with the situation with Turkey and NATO, and especially that Turkey has the S-400.
Yes, that's a perfect
Russian
example,
missile,
Joy.
which they claim that they are not using and is not going to be used.
Yeah,
However, they still have
example.
it.
Yeah, so here they are, a member of NATO, buying arms from Russia. So, on the other hand, he's a clever dog there, Erdogan. I mean, he's supporting Ukraine in its fight against Russia. So, and yet he's making deals with Russians and other matters. So he's playing.
He's brokering different sides here of this
Yeah.
deal. But I would say from in our peace through strength, as we talk about a lot with other countries like Iran and China, is maybe you were going to get to this point, but to get the people within to rise up against Erdogan. There are a lot of Turks that are not happy with the situation, as we see from the protest.
The problem is, Joy, what do we as a nation, the United States, do to support the people in their protests against Erdogan?
We have to let them know that we support them, and I think you had made a good point. They just took away Voice of America's funding, correct? So
I know. I'm in favor of what some of the Trump administration things that people have done, but I'm very much concerned on the shutdown of Voice of America. I'm hoping the policy is they're shutting it down and going to rebuild it up so that it speaks a clearer message on America and make America great again. The Voice of America had many people working for them that were suspect as far as being pro-American. They would hire independent journalists and broadcasters who were suspect in their loyalty to the United States. So maybe that's the strategy. I certainly hope so, because I really believe in the concept of Voice of America and soft power and gray zone activities.
Well, we'll see. Maybe, I mean, these days there's a lot of social media out there, and I'm sure the Turks are getting a lot of news, even though they can ban some of this. So maybe we need Elon Musk's Starlink to help out.
Yep. There's so many different ways.
There is options, though.
Yeah, and there's lots of Turks all over the world. So we have plenty of ways of getting to the people. So I say we do it and point out Erdogan's problems.
Yes.
And what he really is. So.
Well, thank you, Larry, for your brief on this.
Thank you, Joy.
Appreciate it. And to our listeners, please subscribe, share, and comment. Let us know what you think about Erdogan bringing Turkey further into authoritarianism. You can also follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Substack. And you can listen to our show on your favorite audio, whether it's Apple Podcasting or Android phone. Thank you again, Larry. Thank you to our listeners, and join us again next time for Peace Through Strength podcast.